Hey guys, a few days ago somebody approached me and they were thinking of getting involved in commercial real estate. They were looking to begin buying property on their own, but they were very hesitant. They were concerned about inflation. And I said, "What's your concern?" He said, "Well, he knows of this investment group. Apparently, a friend of his has been buying property, and they are getting themselves into some trouble now because when they bought the property 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, they bought at very low interest rates. Their cost of capital on the loan was much lower. Now they have to refinance that property. That mortgage has come due. I think it was a 5 year mortgage, he explained. That mortgage has come due. Interest rates are significantly higher, and they're not able to refinance their property. And so he's watching this particular owner operator run into a lot of trouble where it's possible they're going to lose the property, lose all of their equity, and make some very angry and upset LP passive investors. So I said to him, listen, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen to you. There are some reasons why that happened to that particular group, and I'm going to tell you what I think they are. Number one, you know, it's well known that the federal government, through quantitative easing, has been keeping or was keeping interest rates at artificially low rates. This was in the newspaper all over continuously. If you've been buying property and you thought, hey, look, there's so much capital available and interest rates are so low, I'm going to go buy this property over here and my gosh, I'm going to make a ton of money. That was the thinking of a lot of people. And what they failed to do was to anticipate what's going to happen when interest rates rise. Oh, they're not going to rise. Cap rates are always going to stay at 5%, right? Interest rates are always going to stay at 3 and 4%. No, they're not. And there's no reason to think that they would. It was groupthink amongst a lot of people who were not skilled in real estate, who did not understand kind of the characteristics and the deep specific knowledge that you need to operate and run real estate. And they made a foolish mistake. I'll even tell you, they made a stupid, very common mistake. Just because interest rates are low doesn't mean they're going to stay there. Just because capital is available doesn't mean it's always going to maintain available. Just because you're able to raise rents for the last 3 years doesn't mean you're going to be able to raise rents for the next 3 years. You need to understand economic cycles. You need to understand the ebbs and the flows in the real estate cycle. And there's just a lot of things that you need to understand and to be able to run in a projection that is what I would call conservative. More than that, I would call it realistic and honest. I use that word honest with yourself. You can if you want to kind of fudge the numbers and push the numbers in order to raise money or to get a better loan, okay. But you yourself better understand the numbers and be honest with it so that you can project what's going to happen over a timeline of that whole period. So you see this time and time again where people go out and they just think they're brilliant. They're just geniuses at real estate because look how much money they're making. Yeah, but you know what? When there's a little bit of a hiccup in the road, watch what happens to these guys. I'll give you a great story. So I remember back in the mid 2000s, there was a craze in Florida. People were buying apartment buildings and converting them to condominiums. Guys were making a killing, and I mean young guys in their 20s, right? And they thought they were real estate geniuses, and they kept doing this. And I never did it, and I felt really down because I was peers of these guys, and I was not making that kind of money. I was working at a family office out of New York in the grind, right? I was making a nice living, but I wasn't making tens of millions of dollars by converting apartment properties to become condominiums. And I looked at these guys and said, wow, I should start doing that. But every bone in my body, because of my graduate degree in real estate and because of my experience at institutional level and the mentors that I had at the very highest level, were saying, David, it's a house of cards. And sure enough, these guys didn't realize it, or whatever they realized, whatever their rationale, they didn't think through it properly, and they got caught with their pants down. So yeah, they did 3 conversions that went really well. The 4th one was a disaster, an absolute disaster. They got stuck with what became known as a broken condo. Some of the condos they sold off, some of the condos they were not able to, and they had to go back to managing as an apartment unit, which in many cases was an absolute nightmare and really didn't get solved until after the 2008, 9, 10 economic crisis, when prices fell to the floor and people could come in and pick up some of these apartment properties and finish them off properly. And that took a lot of years to work out. My point is that just because you see other people doing things in real estate and thinking that they're making a lot of money doesn't mean that that's going to work out in the long run. Look, it's like the same thing in any stock bubble, right? This was a property bubble in one way. Stock bubbles are the same way. Oh, look, everybody's buying all these stocks. Everybody's making a fortune in the stock market. I'm going to jump in now. Everybody's buying these single-family homes and home prices are going up so much. I'm going to start buying single-family homes and renting them out. There's no way I can lose. I had a buddy of mine who called me on this one too. He said, hey, I'm thinking of buying a single-family home and renting it out. Should I do that? I said, no. He said, why not? Everybody's doing it. I got 3 other friends who are doing it and making a lot of money. I said, you don't know anything about real estate. And just because those guys are making money right now doesn't mean it's going to continue for them. So my only point is this. It's really interesting to me that real estate's an industry that is very, very capital intensive. You're dealing in often tens of millions of dollars. Even if it's not tens of millions of dollars, you're dealing in hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. Again, depending on where you are, values are different. So $10 million in New York means something might be equal to $1 million in a different part of the country. So there's a lot of money in real estate, and there are a lot of moving parts, and it can be a very difficult asset type to manage. You have investors, you have regulations, you have expenses, you have marketing and finance and operations and sales and leasing. You have everything that goes into a regular business, into a real estate business, and more. And yet you don't need any kind of advanced degree or any kind of a license to buy and own property. I know you need a license to be a realtor, and you even need a license in many places to be a mortgage broker. But you don't need a license to go buy property and rent it out to other people. Really interesting, right? If you want to be a doctor, you need an advanced degree, many years of training, and you need a license that really, in some ways, provides proof that you have that education. Same thing with being a lawyer and an engineer. Hell, my wife is an occupational therapist. She has an advanced degree and she has a license. You don't need that in real estate. So anybody can go out and buy property and begin renting it out. That's frightening. My point here is that because there's so much capital involved in real estate, because real estate is so illiquid that once you buy it, you can't easily just sell it the next day. It's not a stock that you can buy, oh, I made a mistake, I'll sell it the next day. You can't do that with real estate very easily. And even if you could, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars just to sell the property. So you need knowledge. You need specific knowledge. You may be very successful in your business. You may have, a successful career. You're a manager or an executive in a company, and you have a lot of great skills, and those will certainly transfer into real estate. But there's a specific type of knowledge that you do need, and you should go out and get and build that strong foundation before you start buying and acquiring property, before you start raising money from third-party investors, and before you begin taking on a loan and sign your name to a dotted line, even if it's a non-recourse loan. Sometimes people think, oh, it's non-recourse, they can never come after me. Yes, that's correct, so long as you behave and manage that property well. But you do not want to get into a situation where your name is on a property that needed to be foreclosed by a lender. You're right, they didn't come after you for any dollars, but you don't want to be involved with any kind of a bad property. So do yourself a favor. Before you start buying in property, go get some specific knowledge. Go find yourself a partner or a mentor or an expert guide who's been there and done that before and can be there to help you. Because even after you get that specific knowledge out of a book, it's only going to be of limited help when you get out into the real world, because every single property is different and challenging, and you have to understand so many of these moving parts. It's doable, and I would assure you that many of you watching this video have the skills and the temperament and the abilities to do it. It's not rocket science. There are plenty of very, what I would call, not ultra smart people in real estate making a lot of money, but you are in a much better position to be successful with that if you do gain the specific knowledge and you do have a good partner or expert mentor by your side. Thanks for watching.